Let's talk about baggage, conversations, and disagreements. Let's talk about past trauma. Let's talk about internal work. Every time you have an uncomfortable conversation, a difficult conversation, an argument, a fight specifically, anytime somebody says something to you and you get upset and you react, not thinkingly, not choosing your words or your actions or your responses, but you just react, snap choice, boom. This is my default reaction to this type of stimuli, right? Every time you do that, you're exposing your past trauma. You are responding in the moment to something that is not happening in the moment. Not every time, obviously there are times where disagreements and fights are legitimate, where people understand each other and there is a falling out. That's obviously a possibility. But much of the day-to-day fighting we do with our families, with our friends, with our spouses, with our loved ones, it's all based on misunderstandings. And when we double down on these misunderstandings, because language is porous and it's a poor representation of what we're actually trying to communicate most of the time. To be very specific and intentional with word choices is the best way to be able to communicate, to recognize the discrepancies in the ways that people use language and words, and to do your best to choose the most appropriate language. And when you know it kind of doesn't fit and you're aware enough and capable enough linguistically to choose better words or describe what you mean by the words with even other words, you can get as close as possible to understanding one another. But there's so much room there that we don't recognize that is taking up and robbing us this opportunity because we miss it, we don't see it, we don't recognize in those moments because we are reacting, because we are not taking that moment between stimulus and response to make a choice, right? We are reacting with our gut instincts. Whatever we have always reacted with in this type of situation, whether it's like a stress and anxiety that comes up in your chest, whether it's a confrontation with a person or a coworker or a spouse or someone of the opposite sex, gender, whatever you want to call it, these dynamics, these responses, these knee-jerk reactions that we're all having in these moments of conflict have been programmed into us from our past traumas and history. Obviously, you could have positive versions of this too, right? You could have a positive outlook that was accidentally downloaded into your mind through your past experiences. So when you see someone who looks like whatever, someone you had a positive experience with the past or something that reminds you of a positive in the past, then you're very likely going to have that knee-jerk reaction in a positive way. It's not always negative. But it's recognizing that we are not controlling and choosing the way we respond in those moments. We are being controlled by our histories. We're being controlled by our past. We're being controlled by a misunderstanding and a misuse of language that we're not recognizing. And instead of seeing it for what it is, we are attached to these ideas. We're attached to them as if they're us, right? This concept or this theory or this idea or this expression that I have, and I think, oh, that's me, that's part of me. And so then when you challenge that, I get upset and I think you can't come at me, but you're not coming at me. You're coming at an idea. And an idea is never me. I'm never an idea. You're never an idea. Your ideas change. Your concepts change. Your frameworks change. Your understandings change. You grow and you age and you have kids and a family and a wife and a spouse and people get divorced and they lose their loved ones and you change. You change. Everything is constantly in flux. So to go to any specific moment in time in your present life, obviously this happens in the home. A lot of this happens with all kinds of things, but I'm usually speaking about, close friends and relations that we have these disagreements with. And ultimately, if we could all detach from the ideas and stop pretending the ideas were us, then when these challenging moments take shape, instead of having knee-jerk reactions based on past traumas, right, that have been then internalized into automated responses, they are not a choice. You're not choosing in those moments. You are automatically doing what you've learned to do in the past. And that is very often the wrong decision because no moment in the current moment is identical to the past moments that you're basing your actions on. And so we have to get around this concept of my idea is me for long enough to recognize that we have no conflict here. We have no conflict here. If you call my idea into question, that's not conflict. It's conversation. And if we know how to use language and we can detach from this misunderstanding about what we really are and what our ideas and thoughts really are, and if we are willing to challenge our frameworks, then we don't have anything to fight about in those moments. And so the idea that has helped me significantly is to focus on that. When moments come up, when that reaction happens in my chest, when I feel that anxiety or that stress or that fight or flight, whatever you want to call it in those moments, I remember, okay, hold on. Just hold the feeling, let it be, and don't act. Consider it, recognize why you're being, I hate this word, but triggered, right? Recognize where this is connected to your past. Recognize that the present moment isn't the past. It never can be. The past is over and dead. It's gone, right? And so if you can't forgive the past, if you can't forget, basically, if you can't let go of all that past stuff, then you're kind of doomed, right, to repeat it, right? And we know this, but we don't think about it in these little interactions, these little everyday, passing interactions that cause conflict and hardship relationally. We don't recognize that we can avoid those when we don't identify with our ideas, when we don't identify with our thoughts. That's not to say we don't use them or have them or embody them when they're good, but to be completely incapable of having them questioned without having the automated response of past traumas. We can avoid these conflicts. We can get past this. We can evolve in real time. We can update our software when we're willing to question ourselves and when we're willing to be questioned by others. When we can't do that and we knee-jerk respond with a fight, with a declaration of hostility, whatever it is, with any sort of conflict, then we are in the wrong. We're in the wrong. Because these moments and these conflicts, and they build, and when we don't recognize them for what they are, they're practice. They're practice for us to learn our habits. They're practice for us to recognize our patterns. They're practice for us to do all those things, right? And so when we don't recognize them as that opportunity, then we don't learn from them. When we don't learn from them because we don't see them, right? Then we don't know they're there. And then we cannot grow and we cannot change. And the next time that conflict comes around, we can't stop and hold the feeling. And instead of responding, choose the way we'd like to act, right? Choose the way we'd like to act based on the things we value, based on the person we'd like to be, based on all kinds of things. But we can't do that when we're just responding. We can't do that when we're just reacting. We can't do that when we are not paying attention to those moments of conflict and the hostility and what it arises in us as a feeling, as an emotive response, whatever. When we can't do that, we can't grow and learn. And then we are doomed to continue this cycle of response, or stimulus and response, or stimulus and reaction, as opposed to stimulus and thoughtfulness and then choice. Those are the things we need to learn.